grab a cup of joe and gather round the hay bale with your hosts, Alicia from Country Mama Musings, Kacy from Ormsby Farms, Cayce from Boots and Bounty Homestead, Lisa from Yogi Hollow Farm, and Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch. Now, here they are. Hey, y'all. Hey.
Good morning. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Round the Hay Bale. I'm Alicia.
I'm Kacy.
I'm Kacy.
I'm Lisa.
And I'm Monica. Welcome back to the Hay Bale.
Y'all, today is going to be such an exciting episode because we have Tammy from Rebel Canners here, and we're going to be talking everything canning, preserving, all the fun Rebel recipes, and getting Tammy's opinion on what her favorite canning recipe is. So that's exciting. But y'all, how's everybody's week been? Monica, what about you? How's your week been?
It was great. We just did some things around the farm. I finally got our Christmas tree down. Yes, I am the queen of not taking the Christmas tree and all the items down. We finally got our tree and all the decorations down. Eric loves it so much, so we put it up in like early November, like right after his birthday normally. It's a fake tree. It's all fake stuff. So it's easy to put up. It's easy to leave up. And it's so beautiful. And we took everything down yesterday. And even some of the kids were like, the house looks empty. It's so empty without all of it. But I finally took it down. I had to have it down before my son's birthday, the first birthday of the year. And today is my son's birthday too. So my boy that is in a lot of our videos, and he's the one that takes us to Flavortown. My son, Luke, it's his 20th birthday. So now I officially have two children that have completed their teenage years. It's very bittersweet.
Happy birthday to him.
Yeah. So happy birthday, Luke. He doesn't listen to us.
Luke. Oh, are we not cool enough?
He doesn't have time for the YouTube, I don't think. I mean, no, he doesn't watch us unless he's made to, but he's in our videos. But no, he doesn't. He's busy and he just I don't think it's his jam. So he's not listening to us, but
well, you'll have to make it.
Yeah, right.
Jam so he can hear his mom.
Yeah,
on her podcast show.
Yeah,
say happy birthday, Luke.
Well, what about you, Lisa? How was your week?
It's been a fun week. It's gotten a lot better. So a lot of you know Ryan's been ill with everything that's going on. He's doing a lot better. Still home today, and I am much better. A lot of people heard that I had been pushed down by a pig. So my arm is healing. I am doing well, but we ended the week a lot better. Really excited. Our channel just hit 100K views. So very excited about that. That's a metric we've been watching for a long time and we've focused on. So we're really excited about that. And just, we've had a laid back week other than that. But I will say I'm real excited about this episode because like you, Monica, I saw your video. We have that Nesco canner coming. So we're going to be canning. And I know Alicia's got one as well. So we're going to be checking that out. It should be coming in February. So looking forward to that. How about you, Kacy?
Me, Kacy?
Which one?
Which twin? Lady Boots, go.
Okay. Well, I really don't remember. Y'all, last week was such a rough week because I was here and I was there and I was doing training with my job for a new nurse coming in to help me. And I really don't remember a whole lot about the week. I am doing the pantry challenge where, we video like every meal. So that'll be coming out today. I couldn't get it out yesterday, but that'll be coming out today. So bear with the recording the video process because I wasn't able to do a whole lot of videoing because of the training. And then, of course, I've had my videos come out for the week, air fryer and all that good stuff. I don't think you guys can see, but over here, because I'm sitting in my pantry, but over here on the pantry, I've got some seeds started. And so I've got little plant babies coming up and I'm all excited about that. So what about you, Kacy?
Well, I'm same with you. If you follow me on Instagram, those who are listening, I started onions and herbs and flowers for cut flowers this year. And they're all little baby plants. And I get so excited and like giddy and want to like give them kisses because they're growing and they haven't died like my plants last year. But I actually was talking to Lisa before the show. This weekend was the first, we did 2 12-hour days at the farm, like full force, cleaning out the greenhouse, the warehouse. It was my jump start into the new homesteading life. I was worn out. My body hated me afterwards. But it was fun. It was cute. And to piggyback on what Lisa said, I'm going to order one of those Nescos because I'm being peer pressured from all of y'all. So I'm going to blame it on that. But I want Kacy, Lady Boots, do you have the Nesco electric pressure canner?
No, I use Presto's manual.
Yes, I have the Presto manual too, but I saw when Monica was talking about it that you could put just the, what is it, 3 or 4 quarts in there? And
Yeah, I put the last one I did 6 pints, but you can do 5 wide mouth pints and then you can do like 4 quart jars. So it's perfect for like smaller batches and for ovens that may not necessarily keep the temperature those large. Because I have the big Presto one too, and I've used it before once and I wasn't very successful with it. I mean, like my jars didn't, they siphoned a lot and there were some issues, and I think it was the temperature. So it's nice for small batches and kind of set it and forget it. I mean, you can't really walk away, but you can. You can walk away and then when it beeps, you can come back and go and just fix. I mean, it was so easy. Yeah. Especially with
that's
kids
what I
running
want,
around.
leftover soup.
Yeah.
To do some leftover soup and not have to get the big giant canner out. But what have you, friend Alicia? How was your week?
Oh my gosh, what didn't we do this week? We had a really busy week, most of which we were without internet service here at the farms, what made it very challenging to communicate with people, to get things out. I had internet on my phone and even that stopped working. So I was kind of out here in the middle of nowhere land here for a while. We call it the dead zone sometimes because our cell service is so bad, but we managed to get quite a bit done. Last Monday, my granddaughter and I, we celebrated Betty White's 100th birthday. And so we donated some dog food to our local vet who they take in dogs that are found or cats that are found, and they are a no-kill shelter. So they will give them safe harbor until they find them a home. And we've gotten a couple of animals from them. And the funny thing is I had gone live while we were there, telling everybody what we had done and telling Betty White happy birthday. And my sister-in-law phoned me and she says, "Oh, you've got to take that down. You got to take that down right now." And I was like, "Why?" She goes, "I don't know if you know this, but Betty White died." Yeah, I know. That's why I made the video. She says, "Well, you kept telling her happy birthday." Well, I know, because for her birthday, everybody was challenged to make a donation to a local shelter. She was completely beside herself, but it's nice to know that she had my back. I appreciated that she was watching and was concerned that I had created a big Betty White faux pas. But also, we did our budgeting for our cupcake piñata. We went live on Saturday and stuffed some more money in there. And we also added a new element where we're going to be doing a wheel where we select every week where we might go on this destination. And so far, Mount Rushmore's ahead. So Lisa, get ready. We might be heading your way. And I still don't know if Lisa knows about the challenge that I have for her if I do end up in her neck of the woods. But then to top the week off, it was so wonderful because we went to Minnesota this weekend. We drove up on Saturday. It was a 12-hour day for us, but we drove up to a destination that I had just recently learned about. It's called Ice Castles, where there is just an entire park that is turned into man-made icicles that form these big walls of icicles. And they're just a big, huge maze of just beautiful icicles with an LED light show. And we sat on a crystal ice throne and had our picture taken, and our rear ends were frozen. And we stayed until Papa Jim just couldn't feel his toes anymore. But it was so romantic and so beautiful. And I did do a live, but I'm also going to be putting together a nice little video of just some of the highlights and telling y'all about it. So that was our weekend. We slept all day Saturday because we were so tired. And I think mostly we were tired because all the way home we had blowing snow in a snowstorm. And it really was on the interstate. There were times we were the only people out there and you couldn't see where the interstate was. You just drove in the middle and prayed for the best. So that's what we did. It was quite the week.
As I'm muted, I'm talking to you, Alicia, because I was looking at you and Papa Jim's pictures on Instagram, and they were so pretty. What a cute
Weren't
date
those
night.
gorgeous with the LED lights?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I was like a kid in a candy store. I just lit up. I was just enthralled with everything. We did forego the big ice slide because I didn't want to end up in urgent care. I let Lisa have all of that fun this week. I'll do something next week and I'll take the heat off of her. And I do want to say for Monica, my Christmas tree is still up.
Oh,
It is
good.
a lighted fake Christmas tree that I got at the thrift store. And I have it in the window. But you know, where I am positioned at nighttime, I can roll over in bed and open my eyes and see all the way through the house. It's a shotgun type of a situation, shotgun house where you can see from the front to the back. And I just roll over and I open my eyes and I see that Christmas tree lit up in the window. And it's very soothing as a type of nightlight for me. So I'm going to keep mine up for a little bit longer.
Well, I think it's funny because we had these like they're in some of our videos, but we had these beautiful like garlands with the lights and the garlands. And it's just real, I mean, it's just green garland with the lights that are white. And I actually got them for Eric's birthday for him like a few years back because I tend to get him like Christmas ornament type or decorations as birthday gifts in early November so we can put it up and have it available instead of, waiting. And so we had them up and he was like, I think maybe we need some kind of garland to have here all year because when we take them down, our house looks so bare and so plain. He's like, I think we need some like yearly garland. So I think his mind is going with how we can kind of decorate some of the areas of the house because it really does look plain. So yeah.
I was going to say, we've never been that family that leaves the tree up long. And it's just because the way I grew up, it always went up right before Christmas and came down. It would come down like New Year's Eve. I've gotten a little earlier now where it's like Christmas is over and I'm like, it's down. But one of the things that we did just because years that we couldn't have a Christmas tree with Yogi, when he was struggling with dementia, was we bought these tin metal starlights. And I have them on the opposite side of my kitchen cabinets, and they're up year round. Oh. And I've started hanging other ones like it up, and it's just fun.
Yeah, I think that might be an option for us. I mean, the kids used to have Christmas lights up in their room for a while. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to need some kind of twinkle lights or something. It was just so pretty. And I think we enjoy those little lights. I think I noticed that more and more how much we enjoyed that kind of stuff when we had the kids' wedding here last May. And we lit up the entire barn with these beautiful twinkle lights. And I'm like, Eric, can we just leave these? Now, we haven't turned them on since because we don't just go hang out in the barn at night because it's the barn. But I feel like we need to more this spring.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
summer. I want to just plug them jokers in and just enjoy being out there because it's fun.
When I had a barn, we used to hang out in the barn all the time. I had a little table where I could go down and have my coffee and sit with the animals, and the barn cats would come up, and I really miss it. And we had little twinkle lights. So
yeah,
I hope you take an opportunity this spring and summer to go out and enjoy it a little bit more because it really is. I think it's soothing to the soul. I think it feeds that serotonin in our brain. And I think it's just a real calming effect. And I think it centers us a little bit. That's kind of how I feel with this tree. The Christmas lights or the Christmas socks and the ornaments and stuff will be coming down. And I think I'm going to hit the thrift store for Valentine's and put little Valentines up. I'm going to keep it up through February and see where I go from there.
Might as well. Well, I've got birthdays coming up. So this starts my birthday like month, basically. So I have a birthday today. And then 3 weeks, I have 3 more birthdays. February 10, February 11, February 12, right before you, Kacy. So I've got 3 days in a row. So I'm like, we have birthday chaos that will happen here. We got to get the tree down. Got to get my brain organized.
But the twinkle lights, I always put twinkle lights up because they're not really Christmas per se. They're just pretty. And by our big chicken coop on the new homestead is like a covered area that I guess was used for tractors. But we're putting the whole ceiling of twinkle lights on the top and having it like an outdoor dinner area for the family when family visits.
Yep.
Because I love me some twinkle lights. I'll
I'm gonna
twinkle
say,
it all the way home.
I
You
need
know
to
what I
get some
love?
people
The
lights.
Edison lights. And I have been
Oh,
trying to
yes.
find I need solar, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't all my outlets outside are tied up for the animals because I'm trying to connect to, well, right now for water heaters and stuff. So I'll have to wait till the summer,
Right.
but I want to be able to put them out by the chicken coop and stuff. But I have solar lights. Like I have a granite bench out there with a shepherd's hook, and I have a solar
Mhm.
light on it. And then out by a garage, I have tons of solar lighting. It works great.
Yeah, we're gonna have to be twinkle lighting up our yard out there. Maybe the greenhouse will get some twinkle lights on it. I have to talk to Eric. I know he's listening in, so we'll hear.
Come on, Eric, put up those twinkle lights.
I know we'll hear his opinion on that later. He loves anything that looks Christmassy, so I think I can talk him into that one.
Absolutely.
Those twinkle lights make you feel a little bougie in a good way.
I think so.
I'm all about the bougie, Alicia.
You gotta
I'm
have the
all
bougie.
about the bougie. Yeah?
You know it.
I have to say, are we still?
No, you keep going. I was going to say something. I choked on my coffee, so I'm glad you saved me, Lisa. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I use I don't know if you guys saw in my stories, I used the freeze dryer and, I used what I had on hand. I didn't worry about going out to get stuff, but we got our produce box. And so we ended up getting like 4 large English cucumbers. So we sliced up the cucumbers and seasoned them with like a Traeger seasoning for poultry because it happens to have a great flavor and not as much salt. Oh, and they came out amazing. I also did celery and put that away in Mylar bags. So it's pretty exciting for the first run. But
And
it's
you're going to
great.
be sending me some, right, Lisa?
Yeah, sure. But it's really easy. I mean, it really is. That's why I'm looking forward to the Nesco, because literally I can have that and the freeze dryer going. Because the freeze dryer is literally set it and forget it. I can't talk this morning. I apologize. It's set it and forget it because you just put all that stuff in. I ended up buying a dish bucket to put at the bottom because it has a hose and it releases the moisture when it's done. So that helped a lot because having it in a little container, trying to make sure the hose makes it, all that stuff. But it was really exciting. The chips were really good. And I was shocked because I like cucumbers, but it's not like I'm going to sit there and eat a bunch of them. Those chips were gone. Chips
That's
were
awesome.
gone.
That's awesome.
My mind was just going in overload here. I was thinking if you have the hose that releases the moisture from all of the veggies and things that you are freeze drying, what if you had the hose go right into a tray where your seedlings are and bottom feed the seedlings with that moisture that comes out of those vegetables?
Mm-hmm. No. It smelled of cucumbers so bad.
Oh gosh, don't get me started on cucumbers.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I mean literally,
Never mind.
it smelled of cucumbers.
Cucumber water. It's not the bougie thing now to drink.
It's bougie.
It is, and I have no problem with it, but it's wastewater to me. I can't. Mm-mm.
You'd have like spa seedlings. So zen.
What about your other vegetables? Like whenever the vegetable water come out, could you not use that as vegetable stock? Just wondering.
That would be a great question for our guest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just wonder. I look at it as waste.
Right.
Because it's coming out of the machine. I don't know what it's run through in the machine.
I would say that Lisa's face says it all.
Yeah.
She's like, no, I don't think so.
I mean, it even looked a little greenish. But, and one of the things you have to be careful about is when you open the valve and the water comes out, you have to be, no, I'm sorry, it's the opposite. You have to be careful that the tube is not in water or it'll get sucked back up in the machine and ruin your stuff. So I don't know. Let's ask her. But again, I view it as waste. I don't know that I could do it. That'd be like drinking the canning water.
Okay. That makes sense when you say it that way. But with that wastewater, though, what if you pour it out into your garden beds? I wonder if there might be some nutrients that you can at least put back into your soil that might be in that freeze dry wastewater.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
something to think about. I don't know either.
Yeah, I mean, they tout it as it doesn't lose any nutrients, so I don't know that the water would have any nutrients. You know, it's only about less than a quarter of a cup.
Oh, okay.
I mean, and I did 4 trays of celery. No, 1 tray of celery, 3 trays of cucumber, and cucumbers are the 2 of them are full of water. So, but yeah, it was just enough to get on my tote that was underneath when I forgot I had nothing under it.
Oh.
Till Ryan said, might want to put something under this.
Well, I'm glad you had a first go run with it. That sounds amazing.
It was very exciting. I'm looking forward to doing the leftovers with that. But yeah, use the Mylar bag. It's interesting because have you guys used Mylar bags and the O2 sensors yet?
The O2 oxygen absorbers, yes.
Yeah, the oxygen absorbers. I'm sorry.
That's spoken like a girl that's worked in auto parts before.
Yeah. Former office manager here.
There we go. Former Napa clerk here.
Yeah. So yeah, it's weird. And you know, when you first read it, it's almost, for me anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to move quick. You know, because they say the oxygen absorbers are sealed. You cut them open, and here I am, you know, reading the instructions. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you need to seal that back up because they're going to get hot, and then they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
I always have losses when I open up the oxygen absorbers. Even if I reseal them real quick, for some reason, just that little burst of oxygen will get them. If I don't use them all up, like I told my husband, I said, don't order a packet of 100 anymore because I'm not going to use 100 and I have to cut into it to get the 5 that I need. And then I have losses. So just get me little 10 packs at a time, honey.
Yeah, these were larger packs. So that's what came from Harvest Right. So, but yeah, we have that heat sealer. And it's funny, the sealer that comes with the machine is very odd because you would think you would turn it on and the red, you know, like a light would come on because it has an indicator light. It doesn't. You plug it in, and when you push it down to seal it, that's when the light comes on that it's sealed.
I use my flat iron.
Yeah, a lot of people do. Yeah, I got it with the package.
I found it's much easier so you don't have to lay that bag down and position it just right. I just keep it standing up, throw my oxygen absorber in, and use my, you know, I put a curl in on bump on one side of my hair, and then I seal a bag, and then I move on.
I'm going to try curling my hair on the sealer because it
Oh,
works.
hey, that's a novel idea.
You plug it in and it worked right away. It was really easy. I mean, you know, you're laying a bag on it, but it literally plug, click, done.
For some reason, that takes me right back to the 70s when you would lay your head on an ironing board and iron your hair. The things we do, and Casey's just busting up for those of you who can't see it in the podcast.
I am.
Dying. Us girls are too much for him sometimes, I think.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I flat iron my hair sometimes so it's straight, so it lays better when I do the gentleman style, because I have a little bit of wavier hair when it's not up in my terribly ugly man bun or styled beautifully. So I do know that little thing about some flat irons, but not laying my head on the ironing board.
Oh yeah, that was a 70s thing.
Yeah.
I grew up in the 70s, and my hair is so straight, and that's why I don't even bother curling it because it just goes straight. So I never had to use an ironing board. And I used to, in the 70s, I had hair down to my butt.
I didn't have hair that long, and I have very straight hair, but I still ironed my hair because everybody else was. And hey, I saw an ironing board one day. You know how impulsive I am.
Got to do what you got to do to make it look pretty.
Gotta do. Oh my goodness. Well, we had very, very adventurous weeks. So y'all, thanks for joining us in the chat here on Round the Hay Bale. we are shooting this episode live for podcast distribution. So the hosts, we're not going to be able to answer much of your questions from the chat.
A huge thank you to our producing moderators, Miss Brenda from Redburn Farm and Scott from Rambling with the Brooms, for assisting us by answering all the questions and dropping links in our live chat.
So if you have a question, please tag one of our mods and use the capital Q to ask your question.
All right, guys. So since this month is Preparedness Month here at Around the Hay Bale, we thought we would have an episode all about canning. So, me for one, I have been canning all my life. I just grew up doing it. My grandmother did it. My mother did it. Both sides of my families, we've just always grown our gardens, worked on farms, and canned everything. I just grew up doing it, and I've learned a lot watching other people. And so we've got Tammy here that's going to join us, and we've got some questions for you too as well. So, Monica, why don't you go and tell us about your canning experience? How long have you been doing it?
Well, I have not been canning very long. We just moved out into this world of homesteading. And so I really I didn't start canning until I moved here. My mother-in-law has been doing it for years, and I've watched her, and I've sat with her and learned as she has done it for a long time. She was canning bushels of green beans when we were living in Maryland. We would just sit there and work on the green beans. And every year she would get, I think she got at least a bushel every year, and she would can up those green beans. So that was the only thing I had ever seen her can. That was my only experience with it before we moved here, and about 8 years ago. So I decided that I was going to try to start doing that more. And so probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I started actually getting my hands into the canning and the whole water bath world. And so I started with that, and I'm pretty decent at water bath canning. I can do that. And only recently did I start trying to do more pressure canning. I can make a mean pepper jelly and can the mess out of jams and jellies and all those things. I could pickle the peppers and do all that. I can make some relish. But beyond that, I'm still a newbie at the pressure canning scene. So, but I'm enjoying my electric pressure canner so far, so good. So, yeah. What about you, Alicia?
Well, I wasn't born into it. I didn't have those genes. My grandmother, my aunt, and that generation, 2 generations extended from me, they did a lot of canning, but somehow it missed my mother. My mother was a nurse, and she just didn't have time for things like that. So I missed out on that. But I remember after I had 3 small young children, my brother came to visit, and he had stopped at this tree on the side of the road and picked a bunch of apricots. And I said, oh, good Lord, what am I going to do with all those apricots? He says, we're going to make jelly. And so he ran to the store and bought all of our supplies. And he taught me how to make some apricot jam. And that was where I got the bug. And so I did canning for a few years, had an incident of a food fight with rotten peaches in my house with all 4 boys. I had 4 at that time. And I said, well, I'm not canning for a while because it took me forever to clean up all the rotten peaches. But since we've moved here to the farm, I've gotten back into it. I've recently started pressure canning. I have my Presto canner, and then I also have the new Nesco. And I've just been going hot and heavy with all of this canning this year. And if I can one more jar of anything with cucumbers, I think I may have to be somehow institutionalized, because I really think I put up no less than 75 things of cucumbers. That'll be a big joke for us to let Tammy in, because I had it. I was throwing the cucumbers to the chickens, but I'm really looking forward to more of the pressure canning with my Nesco this year. So that's my canning story. Lisa, what about you?
I never canned before this year. I grew up in Queens, New York. Canning was not something you did. My mother, probably even if she lived in the country, wouldn't have done it because she was not someone who liked to cook. Passed that down to me. And, we can this year, but I can tell you, I've got all the equipment now. We bought a bunch of water bath. We have 2 water bath canners that we got at yard sales. We have a pressure canner, both Presto, and then we had the Nesco that we just purchased. But like Monica was saying, the electric stove, our electric stove is not that great. And with the altitude that we're at, I'm not going to stand there going back and forth forever. So I'm going with the set it and forget it. That way, I mean, small batches are just fine for me. It's not like, we have tons of stuff here because our gardening season is so short, but I just like the versatility it offers. So if I decide, hey, I'm just going to make a batch of this, I can make it. So I think that's pretty cool. How about you, Mr. Cayce?
Well, I'm relatively new to canning. Hello to Tammy, because I was a huge fan of Tammy. I actually learned about Tammy from the Facebook group maybe about a year and a half ago. And I was like, Rebel canning. That sounds really fun because I'm a rebel everything else. And even funny story, when we bought our homestead, I was talking to the woman that owned the house and I was like, yeah, I'm a canner. And she's like, a boy that cans. Interesting. I was like, oh, thank you for the shade. But yes, I learned a lot of fun recipes. I, like you, Lisa, bought everything. I got real psycho crazy during the lockdown and ordered like 3 water bath canners. At the time, they were having like shortages on cans, and it probably was because I bought all of them at the Walmart. So I have like 2,000 cans underneath our house now that have to be now moved to the new homestead. But I love water bath canning, but I've really started to enjoy canning meats. I did chicken for the first time in a pressure canner, and it may not look pretty, but it is so simple. I did it for a chicken enchilada soup, and the bones like pull out with ease, and then there's no leftover. Like when you cook chicken, you could get little splitters off of the chicken if you don't pull it off right. Not with canning chicken. It's easy, it's quick. You got a good maybe 2 inch of like a gelatin broth that it creates too. I love it. I love it. So I get to be the one that introduces Tammy now that she's listened to all of ours. Tammy, what about you? How long have you canned, and how did you get started with canning?
One of my earliest memories is being on a chair in the kitchen, standing next to my mom canning salmon. And so I just have always done it. It's since birth, pretty much. So I've just done it, and that's the way I was raised. My parents lived through the Depression. I was an oops baby. So I have older brothers and sisters, and I was raised as an only child. They were all gone and I was at home. So I did everything with my mom. Whatever she did, I did. That's where I was. If she was in the kitchen, I was in the kitchen. And my mom just grew up preserving all our own food, and we didn't eat out. We ate at home. And so this has always been what I've done.
I think Tammy was born with a jar lifter in her hand. She was ready to go. I don't know, Kacy, if you saw it, but when you said you had 2,000 jars under your crawl space, did you see the look on Tammy's face? Her hand went up to her mouth. Oh my goodness. I don't know if What about it, Tammy? What were your thoughts when he said he had 2,000 jars under the house?
Because it's perfect. Because the average family needs about 1,000 jars. So he is all set. He's golden. He's got what he needs to eat for a year plus.
Look at you ahead of the game, Kacy.
Well, Tammy, funny story is I went to our homestead this weekend to clean, and there was the storage in the back where the previous owner, I'm guessing, kept her food. And so we were cleaning stuff away, and suddenly these shelves appeared from all the crap that we threw away from the front trash. And she had literally 375 full cans of, and they're quart jars of carrots, squash. I don't know how old they are, so I won't be eating those. But I was like, score more jars. Not that I needed them.
You can just wash those jars up, put a little bleach in your last rinse water or second to last rinse water, and they're good to go.
So when you say 1,000 jars for the average family, what's an average family size? Just curious.
Not
Asking
yours.
for a
Four.
friend.
4
people.
4 people. Yeah,
Double it.
I have way more than that, but
That doesn't
and
apply
I'm
to
not
Monica
even-
either.
Yeah.
Casey,
I was
you
about
have
to
my
say-
family's jars. Casey, I need your. I need to
I
come
was about
visit
to
you.
say, yes, you do, because you need like 6,000 jars. So you can come and grab some.
I'll be over. I'll be over this week.
Well, that's
Tammy,
okay because I bought a ton of jars, and Ryan was like, "Are you going to put anything in them?" And I that's what's been the hold off is the stove thing. So when I get this thing, I can start filling them. But I got a ton of jars, so there's only 2 of us here, Monica.
Tell him to hold his horses. You're coming, okay? You're just catching up.
Well, Tammy, how many are in your family?
Right now there's 3 of us, but I have
Okay,
the 2 teenage boys eat for 6. So
right.
Yeah.
So yes, Monica, you need 7,000 jars.
Yeah, I'm going to need a
Yes.
lot more space. Eric, if you're listening, I'm going to need a lot bigger space for these jars, okay? Because my
That's right.
shelf,
Build her something new.
my shelves back there that he built me over the summer, already filled. Done.
Yep, I knew that wasn't gonna last long. See, this is the
I was about to say.
house's this is the house's dining room. I turned my dining room into the pantry because it has a den and living room. So I don't need both.
Yep.
So the living room is my den. I mean the dining room, and then the den is my living room, and now the dining room is my pantry. So that's where all this is. But Tammy, I really love the name, Rebel Canners, because me and you both growing up doing it, it becomes like second nature on, what you can and how you can it and how long you can it for. So being a rebel just comes with experience, in the canning process. And you don't so much have to really follow the recipes because we've done it for so long. We just use them as guidelines. And so that's what kind of makes it hard for people to understand, I think, as being new canners as to how you do rebel canning. But it takes years of experience of canning multiple things in multiple ways to be able to get that knowledge, and to expand your pantry and doing stuff that isn't solely in the ball canning book kind of thing.
yeah.
And so just understand it's not really rebel canning as in you're just going off the wall kind of thing, but it's experience that has taught you and led you to the point, where you are as well as myself. So thought I would throw that out there.
Thank you. Because a lot of times people think we're like, oh, we're just, not
Yeah.
going to go against, there are rules even rebels follow.
Yes.
You always do, you choose your method and you use the right time for your method. You use the right process for your method and you don't skip on those steps. You follow your method. You just have to pick one.
Well, Tammy, for those that are listening podcast-wise, explain to these listeners and viewers what rebel canning is to you. In your opinion, what is rebel canning?
Rebel canning means that I can can things that the USDA doesn't approve for home canning. That I can teach the old ways that we've done, and if you can buy it in a store, you can can it at home. So, just because somebody says they haven't tested it, they're never going to test milk, but they've been canning milk since 1860. But there's a lot of big lobbies. There's no money in testing so that you know exactly how to do it at home. So you have to go by what we've been doing, for almost 200 years and not, Napoleon was canning it, for crying out loud.
It's funny, Tammy, that you said that because, you think when you go in the stores and you buy the cream of potato soup or cream of this or the canned condensed milk, you're like, well, if we can't can it, how are they doing it that's different in the stores? And then you think, you're like, okay, if they can do it, they're obviously doing it so, or they wouldn't be able to sell it on shelf stable, no refrigeration, that kind of stuff. So that's how I found Rebel Canners on Facebook originally, was questioning myself like, okay, why can I not can milk? It's a great price right now. Why can I not bulk buy it, can it, so I have it for the future? So that was a great point that you made about the grocery stores, and if they can it, so can you. Huh?
Absolutely.
What's the craziest thing or out there thing that you have canned that you were shocked that you canned?
I canned ground ostrich into taco meat. My local IGA, which is no longer in business, would take any of the meat that was close to the sell-by date, freeze it, and sell it by half price. I got 6 packages of ostrich for 30 cents a pound, and I canned ostrich. And in Michigan, where I don't even know where they got the ostrich.
That's awesome.
A zoo was having a going out of business sale. The local zoo was closing down.
I think there was a few ostriches out there with some attitude. They learned the hard way.
There you go.
Real quickly, I looked over into our chat and I do see that we have a question, and I'm not sure it's one that the mods are familiar with. So we'll throw this out here to Tammy. Dragonflies Ozark Homestead asks, when I make ghee, do I need to can it, or is it safe to just make it and it's shelf stable? I've heard several different opinions on this. I myself make ghee and I keep it shelf stable. I don't actually process can it. Tammy, what's your view on ghee?
Actually, canning butter and canning ghee, the process is pretty much the same. With the ghee, you're getting every single bit of milk solid out of it, and it is then shelf stable. You do not have to can it. But when you make butter to can, you actually are almost making ghee. You're trying to get as much of those milk proteins off, and then you can it. So it's just really a preference. You know, you basically wind up with ghee when you can it too. So it's just a preference, but it is very much shelf stable. It's just how long you want to keep it on your shelf. Canning it keeps it just a little bit longer.
I know for me, when I make ghee, I just put it on the shelf, and it doesn't last long anyways because it's so good. We enjoy it so much. So for those of you who are listening or are here in our live right now, if you haven't tried ghee, try it. I'm sure that Tammy on her channel and on her page, she has some great tips for ghee. I love it.
Well, speaking of the butter and the lard, I have a question for all you ladies, because this was just totally off the wall thinking of it. When you do lard, I do know the lard is the fat of pigs. Can you save the fat of a already cooked ham to then turn into lard? Or does it have to be the raw from the pig before it's smoked for a ham? That'd be my question, if I could use that fat that I saved off of a already cooked ham.
It's not going to make a pretty lard. It's not going to make a white pretty lard if you use a cooked ham. And it's going to have a lot of the smoked flavor if it was a real smoked ham. And it's also going to have a lot of salt and those byproducts if it was a commercially prepared ham that isn't.
Which it was.
That isn't a country ham. So you really don't want that in your food, if that makes any sense at all.
You know, it does.
You can use it. I mean, I use it in my frying pan. I have like every good Southern lady, even though I live in the North, I have a can of baking grease on my stove that I'm using. You can put it in there. It'll give it, it's just a preference of, do you really want to use it or not? And it depends on, to me, it would depend on the kind of ham. If I had it smoked from my pig and I had it smoked, then yes. If I buy it from the store commercially prepared, I'm not saving that grease.
Yeah, but that's what it was. It was the Smithfield.
I think it speaks to, I would think it speaks to what you're going to use the lard for as well, too. I mean, if you're going to use it just for cooking stuff like what Tammy was talking about, just similar to what you're cooking with your bacon grease, maybe a little different. But if you're going to get hams, try to go find the ones from the butcher that are local if you can, because they're going to be a lot more clean. Remember, when you get a ham or bacon, it's been cured with all those seasonings and stuff. If you're getting it commercially, it's going to have a lot more things in it that you probably don't want, versus a local butcher who's going to have their own spices that they use from curing. We actually did our own hams. We cured our own hams one year. The butcher didn't have time to hang them for us. So he said, here's what I need you to do. You can buy the spices from me. You can cure it yourself in your own refrigerator. I'll tell you how to do it. And then you're good to go. You can smoke it yourself. It was awesome because we got to do that process. But knowing what he did was like, I'm like, wait, this is so easy. It's just spices and then smoking. Okay. It tasted so much different than store-bought anything anyhow. But I might use that for cooking certain things, like I would use interchangeably with bacon grease. But it would definitely make a huge difference if you're trying to bake with it with pie crusts or whatever you're going to make.
Oh, it would not taste good.
Yeah, and one thing you can do is after you get through cooking your ham, of course, is to save those leftovers, all the fats and everything, as well as the fat you're skimming off like you're talking about, and the bones, and you can freeze it until you get more vegetables and flavors and stuff to go with it, make your own broth, and then can the broth.
Oh.
That does give flavor. I mean, everything that's meat passes through this house, get all the leftovers frozen, and I make broth out of them.
And also, the whole homesteader movement, right? When you're doing the leaf lard, everything that I've learned on it, I haven't done it myself. The whole point of it is lard as we knew it was not good for us, right? But the whole point of harvesting and making your own leaf lard was to have a healthier product. So I think, Kacy, the commercial ham and all that, like what Tammy was saying, is then creating lard that is not healthy versus leaf lard, which is healthy because it doesn't have anything in it.
I wanted to touch back real quick because there are some in the chat that don't know what ghee is. So just to let them know, if you've ever gone to a fancy steakhouse and they say, we're going to have this beautiful ribeye with clarified butter, and you pay so much more because it sounds so fancy because it has clarified butter, that clarified butter is ghee. It's where you go through a process where you separate the milk solids from the butter fat. You skim off the butter fat and you store that. It is shelf stable. It's also a great alternative for those who have issues in their tummy processing anything that has the lactose and everything from the milk. So you just have the butter fat. And I've actually made some for my son. His stomach handles it very well. He can't have anything dairy, but he can have the clarified butter or the ghee. So Tammy, do you have anything to add to that to explain exactly about the ghee? Because now we've got people saying, oh, ostriches and now geese, but no, it's ghee.
And also, why wouldn't you make your own? It is very simple. It's just a one-step process at home. And for $15, $16 here for a pint, and remember, a pint is a pound. So that's basically a pound of butter, which I was getting, I think $1.99 at Christmas, a pound of butter. So a pound of butter versus $16 for a store-bought can of ghee. I can't not make my own.
Exactly. And it has a beautiful kind of almost like a nutty flavor. It is wonderful for frying your eggs. That's mostly what I use it for. I don't spread it on toast or anything. You don't use it in that fashion, but I fry eggs with it and I use it in some of my baking and cooking, and it is really delicious, and it is so easy. And I almost find it very therapeutic to just sit there and just skim that oil off the top. It's a process. It is one that is a refined process where you have to take your time so you don't get any of those milk solids in with your oil as you're skimming it off the top. But I find it to be very enjoyable. It forces you to take a step back and just focus on getting that oil, and everything just kind of falls by the wayside. I find it very soothing. It's a soothing process, and it goes right into my mason jars and on the shelf.
And
Wow, Tammy, you got butter for $1.99. I was just thinking I got it on sale, a pound, 2 pounds for $5 the other day.
but still, that's still way cheaper at $2.50 a pound than $16 a pint for ghee in the store.
Absolutely.
And then all those milk solids that you skim off the top and off the bottom, that settle off the bottom, when you're roasting your potatoes in the oven, use that instead of your other oils. It's
Nice tip. I was letting them cool and putting them in sparingly into my dog food as a treat for them, but that's a good tip.
Hey, Tammy, I wanted to bring up one thing that you touched on earlier, and I don't know if you want to expound on it. But, being the Rebel canners, like Kacy, it intrigued me as well. But you had said something to the accordance that they used to do it. They used to do it certain ways. And I wanted to get your opinion on, I've noticed that cookbooks, pressure canning books back from the 50s and 60s have recipes that are no longer in the current books. And, I think you touched on a little bit about why they're no longer in the books. But, if you're comfortable with canning and being a rebel canner and such, you can go back and use those old recipe books. Could you touch on your experience or your opinion of doing stuff like that?
Well, like anything, certain foods and vegetables fall out of favor. So you're not going to find a lot of cabbage recipes and canning just plain cabbage, right? Canning like cabbage. There isn't a recipe right now to can cabbage as like shredded cabbage in the Ball Blue book because it's not in favor. But you can go back to the 1974 book and it's front page, front and center, because people were eating a lot more cabbage right then. So of course they're going to change things. The one thing you need to know when you're looking at the old books is they did in the 1980s update times for fish and seafood. So you do need to use the more current times, but you can use the old recipe, just update the time.
Okay.
I have a question for you. So for newbie canners, right? Somebody may be listening and maybe they're feeling inspired to can. I think everybody's concern is the obvious, right? How do they know that it's secure? How do they know that it's done correctly? How do they know that it's not tainted? Like all of that stuff, so they know it's food safe. Because, that's the biggest thing. Is it safe for my family to eat a year from now? So can you explain some of that to folks that are listening in?
I tell every new canner to go buy a Ball Blue book because it has the step-by-step directions and it has your times tables. Go to your times table, you look up your ingredients. If you're using meat, that's going to be your longest timed ingredient. So you look at the meat and it says 75 minutes for pints, 90 for quarts. If you're looking at a recipe from somewhere else and that time isn't the same, don't use it. Now, obviously, if you're doing soup, if you have it up to 50% of liquid by volume, you can use a lesser time. So there are exceptions to that. But you really just start knowing your times tables. Just like back in elementary school, you started math by knowing your times tables. Know the timetable, and then work with proven recipes until you're comfortable. So that then okay, that's not the right time. I don't want to use that recipe.
I do have one other question. Oh gosh, I just had it and I lost it. So I'll let somebody else ask. Sorry about that.
I was going to touch on what Tammy was saying about knowing your timetables, because that was one early thing that I did when I started learning to can. And I started learning to can from Living Traditions Homestead is what I watched first. And she said that as well. But knowing if you're doing like a roast or something, knowing that the meat, go by the meat time, not by carrots or potatoes or whatever it is. It has to be the highest time. And that's what I always tell, like, Sis Tara, who's wanting to learn to can, is to learn those timetables, because that saved me for the first year of me canning. I was like, oh, how do I can this? Well, I know there's ground beef in it, so I know it's this many minutes. And then going from there, and then you can do the rebel canning, which it's so funny that that's so controversial in the homesteading community, that people are like, oh, you're a rebel canner? Okay, I'm not robbing a bank. Okay, I'm just canning milk. Okay,
I had a neighbor stop by, Kacy, and she had brought me some apples last year. And I said, can I gift you a jar of some glazed carrots? And so I brought her some glazed carrots, and she's like, you're not a rebel canner, are you? Did you follow the rules? I said, I followed the rules, but technically I'm a little bit of a rebel. But I thought, she like took steps back going, you followed every detail, didn't you? It's fine. They're good. Enjoy. But yeah, some people kind of get a little put off a little bit because they think you're not following the rules. Rebel canners, to a degree, still follow the rules, such as the times tables, making sure everything, you've got your sterilization and you're doing everything proper. It's just you're kind of thinking a little bit outside the box and doing things like Tammy said, tried and true.
I started the group because on Facebook, because you weren't allowed to ask a question about why can't I can milk? I mean, that's a legitimate question. Why can't people ask that question? How dare they question the Ball Blue Book or the USDA or the whatever, your county extension office, who don't even follow all the same rules as the USDA, who doesn't even follow, and then you got all these people from other countries who still do things the old way, and they're like, who's the USDA and why should I care? And so, why can't people ask why? I'm a why learner. I have to ask why. I'm not going to do anything until I've asked why. That's how I learn. And so I wanted a safe place for people to be able to ask. And then people were like, didn't really know how to can anymore. Nobody had taught them. They didn't have their mom standing there on, telling them to stir this and put this lid on and put that. And they were mixing methods. So they were mixing up water bath and pressure canning. And then they were trying to oven can that hasn't even been in place in years and years and years, or just trying to, I know someone that open kettled soup. And then she wondered why her kids were sick all the time. They're always sick. They have to take them to the doctor every week. Well, you can't open kettle meat. It was never a method to open kettle meat. And so nobody knows this because they're all trying to mix all these methods up because nobody's teaching them the difference between them. Because if you ask a question, you're booted out of the Facebook group immediately just for asking a question.
Yes.
And so I started Facebook Rebel Canners so people could ask questions, so we could teach them both the old ways correctly. So if you're going to try the old way, do it right. Have a safe place where people can say, hey, you didn't sanitize your jars. You skipped a step. You have to use with water bath. So even though they've come out and said you don't need to do it if you're pressure canning over 10 minutes, if you're water bathing, you still have to do that step. So just because Susie says, oh, I skipped that step, you guys aren't talking the same language because she's pressure canning, you're water bathing. So I wanted a safe place where people could learn what was important, what was the important steps, because that's where a lot of people have went wrong and gotten hurt.
Could our mods drop? I don't know if the mods see the question on the screen. If y'all could drop the Facebook group link in the chat, please. It's called Rebel Canners, and we have a link, so we'll drop it in the chat so you can go over. And it's 100,000 plus Rebel Canners. I mean, how cool is that, Tammy? Did you ever think that you would get to over 100,000 people?
At 300, I wanted to cap it because I thought that was a nice, lovely number, and that we should just keep it like here, and we'll just all be friends, and we'll have a great little number. And I asked the group, I'm like, hey, do you want me to cap the group and we'll just stop it here? And they're like, oh no, you need to keep this going. Everybody needs to be able to do this. And that's how it got so big. And there's actually 7 copycat groups on Facebook trying to be me. So the link is important because, it's amazing.
It is, because I joined the wrong one at first. And I was going back because I was trying to get all of the links sent to our mods and to all of our hosts and to Tammy. And I was like, I'm a member of 2 Rebel Canners. She has 2 things. And then the Rebel Canner actually says, by Tammy McNeil. That is what you're looking for. You're not looking for the other one. So if nobody drops it, I'm going to try to find it and drop it in there.
I did write a book, and so I was going to do meetups. So I have a group for each state or region of the state if there wasn't enough members to form a subgroup. So there are a lot of subgroups. Once you get into Rebel Canners, you'll find out there's a lot of groups. And I'm really big in Australia. So there's an Australian Rebel Canners. And then I didn't know that Australia and New Zealand were kind of like at odds. And New Zealand asked if they could start their own Rebel Canners group because they didn't want to be in the Australian one. So and then I think there's a UK one and then a South Pacific Islands one. So if you're from different countries, once you get in the main group, you can get in one. And the local ones, you can share produce, you can share jars, you can sell things that you can't do in the big group because it just clutters the big group.
Tammy,
So question.
Oh, go ahead, Lisa. I'm sorry.
So question for you, Tammy. So a lot of terms people may be hearing that they're not familiar with, right? There's water bath, there's pressure, there's dry canning, there's, open kettle methods. Can you share, you were saying that people weren't using the right methods. Can you share a little bit about why you might use one method over another, why that's more appropriate so people can get an idea of what they're looking for?
Pressure canning is for low acid foods. So if you're doing anything that is low acid, that would be the preferred method. Then the next method is water bath canning. And a lot of countries do not have pressure canners. They also water bath low acid foods. But then you're water bathing for 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours. You're not water bathing for 15 minutes and pulling your fruits out. If you're doing something with vegetables or meat, it's then going to be 3.5 to 4 hours of water bath. And you have to have another kettle of water and you keep filling it up so that it stays full. Okay, it's not easy to do low acid foods in a water bather. So if you have a pressure canner, that's the preferred method. Water bath, you can do anything in water bath. And then dry canning is confusing. I absolutely hate that term. And I hate it. And I know they have it in my group all the time. You either raw pack, which means you don't put water in when you're canning. There's no real, dry canning isn't a real term, even though they use it. And then I also dry seal goods in canning jars. There's 2 methods to do that. You can use a vacuum sealer or you can use your oven to dry seal foods. And that is foods that have no liquid in them whatsoever. And that includes things like shortening. Shortening is a liquid at high temperatures. So those are for like things that you would put, rice, flour, things like that. You can dry seal. But dry canning isn't really a real term, even though I can't get people to stop using it in my group at all.
What I was going to say before Lisa asked that really great question is we do have a question over in the comments, and it's from Heather, and she wants to know what your thoughts are about canning pumpkin puree. She's hearing different stories. She wants to know your thoughts on pumpkin puree.
Well, my distant cousin, Libby McNeil, they can pumpkin puree all day long, every day. And I people say, oh, you can't can it. It has to be all this special, whatever. So I spoke to an employee of theirs who runs the pressure canner. And I said, what temperature do you do it at? And they're like, the standard temperature. I mean, like, how long do you do it? The same time it used to be in the book. They're doing the exact same thing we're doing, but they're putting it in cans. Now, do I see them canning it in quarts? No. Is your puree thicker than my puree? Maybe. I don't know. But I wanted the consistency that I would put in a pie pan for pumpkin. I wanted the same consistency that Libby's is using. So I feel very comfortable pureeing my pumpkin and making pumpkin butter and making pureed pumpkin and canning it. I also feel very comfortable taking cubes and canning them in quarts and then draining them and mashing them and making that into pumpkin for a pumpkin pie. It's your comfort level. Where are you comfortable? The USDA says you can't do it. Other countries do it all the time. It's been done for 200 years. And if you go through the CDC and look at every single case of the B word, you'll find that nobody has in the last 50 years reported a case of botulism from canned pumpkin? Nobody.
I'm glad you clarified the B word. I was getting a little nervous.
Yeah, that is my in the Rebel Canner group. You'll find I use that because it's like, don't even use it, because people try to use it interchangeably. There's a lot. It's very rare, and there are a lot more foodborne illnesses you need to worry about in your kitchen, than that one, because you're more apt to get one of those because of your hygiene practices in your kitchen than you are to get that one. It's very, very rare.
I want to say something real quick on that. I was in a canning group. I made one post and one post only in that specific canning group because I was attacked so bad by the canning police. Let me tell you. Okay, so I was doing my vegetable soup that is fixing to be on my my pantry challenge coming out today, and I use everything from the pantry. We have ground deer. I can potatoes. I can corn. I can green beans. I can it all. Okay. I made a picture one time, and this was probably 3 years ago or so before I got on YouTube, and I took a picture of everything sitting on my stove, and I was like, everything is homegrown, home canned and everything. I got so bad beat down because my potatoes had skins on them. Oh my goodness. I have never been so, I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't ashamed, but I felt bad for them for, just arguing so bad. I had to take the post down. And I'm like, I've done this for years, but they beat me to death with botulism this and botulism that. And I'm like, I've done this my whole life. I ain't never hurt nobody. We're all still living. It's fine. I scrubbed them.
And when you take it out of the can, you're boiling it for 10 minutes to heat it up before you eat it anyway. Hello?
It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. I had to take it down. I felt so bad for them people.
I think it all goes back to what you said, though. It's what you feel comfortable with in the end and what you feel comfortable putting in front of your family, because that's one of the things I kept saying on my video last week was, this is just what I'm doing. This is leftovers that we made. I'm putting them in my electric pressure canner. This is all what I feel comfortable with. I'm doing it to the time it's supposed to be, but this is what I feel comfortable with giving my people. And I take the rings off. And when I store them, I don't stack anything on top of them. My mother-in-law will, when we do the green beans each year, she is adamant that she leaves the rings on because it doesn't make a difference. And I'm like, and because in my mind, I'm like, take a ring off, because I feel comfortable knowing that once it was set, I pulled the ring off. And when I store it, if it pops up, okay, that's a surefire sign something went wrong. But if the ring is on my mind now, I'm like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, if there's bacteria growing, it's going to just infiltrate all of the, that's in my head, right?
It's that false seal thing.
Yeah, it's the false seal. But that's in my head too. But that's, again, what I feel comfortable with doing. So for me, when I do any of the canning, I pull the ring off as soon as I can. I store it somewhere else, and I'm good to go, because now I know in my head, I feel comfortable doing that. And that's my jam. And it's cool if my mother-in-law wants to leave the rings on, do it. That's her thing. I just know what I feel comfortable with.
I'm really glad that the mods are dropping the link to Tammy's page. And I'm also very thankful that Kacy was mentioning about what a following she has, because we all just kind of jumped in with both feet. And I really didn't properly introduce Tammy and tell everybody about how many faithful followers she has and about her page and everything. And so I kind of have to skip over that in some of our little bullet points here. But and we've hit some great topics. And one I wanted to touch on, it was a question that I had written down for today's topic of canning with Tammy. Is, you had mentioned earlier they have quite the following in Australia. And Lisa and I, we were speaking with a friend this past week who actually lives in Australia. And much like we've experienced here in the States, there's a shortage of canning supplies over there. And he shared with us to get 1 dozen, I don't recall, Lisa, if it was pint or quart jars, was like $132 for 1 dozen jars. And so I had said, hey, make sure you start saving all your jars. There's quite a bit going around right now. And I actually brought a sample of it. you can get the pasta jars off the store that say Atlas or Mason. They have the button top lids on them. What are your thoughts on actually using these? You got one too? You brought one too? What's your thought on using these for water bath canning? I don't think they'll hold up in pressure canning unless I'm wrong. But what about actually using these lids again? If you cannot get the lids with the rings because there's such a shortage, can you use these lids again and actually can in these jars? Can you give us a little bit of detail about that?
So you can use them to pressure can. I don't. Personally, I like, because I feel comfortable with the two-piece style. But I do have some that I got from the Amish that are one piece that are new that I use because I couldn't get the other kind. But you want to make sure that you still have a really good rubber seal in there. You look for the ones that have the button, because then I know when I touch it that it's up or down. Yep. And there is a trick to reusing these, or any of them, the lids that you would reuse. You can boil them for a cup, lightly boil, not a hard rolling boil, but simmer in a teaspoon of baking soda in a saucepan of water, and this rubber will plump back out.
Oh.
So you can plump them back out. And I use these for storage. I use these for my dehydrated stuff. So I save my regular jars, but I also use them to water bath all the time.
Yeah, I use them for storing my dry goods, and I can use my my vacuum seal if I need to, or just use the dry goods without even vacuum sealing. But my main question, really true, that you just answered was, could I use these jars for some basic things in my pressure can or in my water bath canner? Tomato sauce, tomato juice, things like that have that high acid. So that will be good for our friends down in Australia to know, but also very good for those of you here in the States when you are getting these pasta, because I don't know about anybody else here. I didn't get enough of my tomatoes this year to warrant how much pasta I'm going to use throughout the year. So I have to buy sauce every once in a while. And I used to get them in a can, but now I'm getting them because of these beautiful jars. I'm getting the brands that have these jars that say Mason or Atlas on them. So I can utilize the jars. So it's a topic that we've had with Kacy up in the middle there for a while. Is someone's trash is someone else's treasure. So think before you throw things away. Get these jars and utilize them for canning.
And you can buy replacement one-piece lids at Layman's, and you can, and other our local Amish store carries them. So
good to know. Good to know.
So I think that you brought up some really good points about, people getting attacked when they ask questions, when they stray from the ball book. And I know Monica turned around also and said, it's what you feel comfortable with. Obviously, everybody has to do their own research. For me, as a new canner, obviously, I'm going to follow the ball book to a T because I don't know any better about anything else. So, Tammy, that was good advice. The other thing I think is, it's ironic. I'm just going to be real. It's ironic how people get very set in their ways about canning. And I agree that it needs to be. But at the same time, these are also the same folks who might be eating food that's 5 or 6 days old in the fridge. So I'm kind of curious about the reusable canning lids. What are your thoughts on those? And the reason why I asked is I couldn't find any lids. So I bought a case of reusable ones.
Same here.
In fact, I think you might have told me about it in Wide Family Farms chat. So
I live very close to the factory here in Michigan. The Tadlers are made in Michigan. They're 100% Michigan made. The owner is like 75. In person, he's a really great guy. I tried to get an interview with him over the phone, and he's like, nope, not interested. And tried to talk to him. But I've met him and his wife in person. They're wonderful. The other company is Harvest Guard. Harvest Guard. And they're not Michigan made, but they are US made. And it is a relative of his that tried to take his patent, and there's a big family feud and fight. And I don't know the whole story, not my story. But they're very much alike. Very much alike. Both are very good. The rubbers are good for 7 uses. So, and then you might want to try that plump up trick with them. But yeah, those are wonderful. There's just a little bit of a learning curve with those. You don't tighten them the same way. Like if you're used to like finger tightening your jars, you kind of have to take go back a little bit. It's not the same. So you really need to read the instructions. It's a little bit tricky, a little bit of a learning curve, but I have a couple harvest guard I tried just to see how long they'd stay sealed, and they have been sealed for 8 years. So
Wow.
yeah, I like to run little experiments like that. Like I'm in it for the long term with my pantry. I know there's this 18 months and out kind of thing.
Mhm.
I can for 2 years. I want everything to last 2 years in my pantry, because if you know the growing cycle of plants, a lot of plants are like biennial. So you have one really good harvest, and the next year you may not get a harvest at all. It might be just tiny, your apple tree, you only get half a bushel instead of 6 bushels or whatever. And then if you get an early frost and it takes out your apples on that 3rd year, if you didn't have enough canned for 2 years, you're really hurting. So my plans are to have a 24-month supply in my pantry, so that I am protected from frost. I'm protected from low harvest years, things that happen. Weather happens. I'm in
Right.
Michigan. Weather happens every day, sometimes 6 times a day. I can have summer, spring, and fall all in one day with a little snow in between, and it's July. Who knows? It's actually snowed in on the Great Lakes in July. Just freak hail weather, like weird stuff. So,
Mother Nature.
she's a little bipolar. So I have a 2-year plan, and that's what works for me. And then I like to test things out. So when I got back into canning milk, I have milk that I canned for my daughter. She was getting WIC and she just couldn't use her milk all up.
Right.
So I canned some, and then she's got so much that she hasn't needed the canned milk. So I have some in my pantry that's just sitting there. I just want to see how long it's good, how long I can keep it for. I open one a year, check it out, sniff it, cook it, use it, and just check, because I don't want to tell somebody else they can do it if I haven't done it first. So like the dried potato, raw packing potatoes in a can, the dry canning potatoes, I haven't tried that because 2 years ago I canned 300 pounds of potatoes.
Mm.
I will never can another potato in my life. I may not even eat potatoes ever again in my life. I happen to be able to glean behind the farmers, and I got 500 pounds of potatoes that year. We ate 200, and I canned 300 before they went bad. I will never can another potato, ever. I'm 55. I don't need all the cans of potatoes that you can't see behind me. Even with a family of, when I had a family of 4 and now, 2, and yeah, I don't need those. So I'm not going to get on that bandwagon, because I don't want any more
Well,
kids.
well, Tammy, I have a question that's kind of piggybacking off of Lisa's question. So, what is your feeling on the knockoff brand canning lids? Because I was reached out to by a company about using them. As YouTubers, I'm sure all of us have been hit up by those that you think are sketch companies. So I tried it out, and they sent me 300 wide mouth lids. What is your feeling on the knockoff, not Ball, or what is it, Kerr? Is the other one, Kerr?
Superb is excellent. I use the Superb. They're the ones with the blue. It almost looks like more like a foamy than a rubber. So it's Superb. Super B is how it's spelled. Those are excellent. I had great luck with them. They sent those to me, and it came at a perfect time when I couldn't find
I think that was it, actually.
Yeah, and they're American made. They are made right here in Ohio, and it is a long-standing company. I researched them to make sure, and I actually spoke to the owner of the company before I tried them, and I love them. They're really good, and Lehman sell them. I have not tried the purr. I have not tried the purr.
I've heard mixed reviews. I mean, I'll be honest, you know, in my buying things because I could find them. I bought these at my hardware store because Ball has not been able to be found here in South Dakota for the past 2 years, unless you buy entire jars and cans and all that stuff. You know what I mean? A complete set. However, I had a friend of ours who keeps telling me anytime I need something to say something because she has it all. And so I just said, hey, I want canning jars. Well, she had tons of jars, but no rings or seals. So between this and the Tatler, you know, but then as I find Ball, I've been replacing them as well.
I also buy them in, and they have no name on them, no nothing, at my Amish store. I get them in a big sleeve. It looks like a brown paper bag, and there's like
100.
a 2-foot sleeve of them. When everybody else was running out and buying toilet paper, I ran to the Amish grocery and bought canning lids because I can use that brown paper wrapper off those canning lids for a while. But I can use mullein leaves. I can use all sorts of things, but I can't replace canning lids. I can't make those at home. So I ran out and I got 2 of each size of those sleeves, and I'm still working on those. So
The Amish stores are a great resource, but our Amish stores are they're out now. They can't get anything either. But you know, going back to the Harvest Guard, for Lisa who's just gotten hers, I've gotten mine. I think the smart thing is to start just canning water. That way you're not losing any food. And if you can some water and you can test how that's going to work with doing just a little less than the finger tight, making sure you understand how those work, you put those jars of water in your pantry, use them for medical purposes. Or a good point that was brought up the other day is I do a lot of meals in a jar with dehydrated goods, and you're going to need water. If you're in a situation where you are really completely 100% off the grid all of a sudden, you're going to need water. So I've got the water put away that I'll have with that. So I think that is a really great thing. We did have a question earlier, and I don't think we touched on it, but somebody wanted to know what your thoughts were on the new Nesco pressure canner. Lisa has one on order. Monica has one. I have one. Casey's getting one. What are your thoughts, Tammy, on that new Nesco?
Because I'm being bullied.
Bullied, that's a rough word.
I'm jealous, and I want one too. I have tried a couple different kinds. I have a Power Pressure XL that was given to me by a friend. She got it as an Instant Pot for Christmas and didn't like it. She didn't like cooking in it. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's wonderful. And I can do 4 pints in that. And so when I'm doing leftovers, it's perfect to just pull it out, do the leftovers. It does it. I really would like to try the Nesco. I think that would be awesome.
Well, I'm a fan. I know Monica's a fan.
I'm loving it.
I know Lisa will be a fan, and so will Kacy when he gets one. And, you know, it is perfect for those small batch canning. I think almost all of us here, I'm not sure, we have the Presto, you know, like the 23 quart, and we can do several cans at a time or several jars at a time. But when you just have something small, I know I was sharing with the ladies before that when I'm growing green beans, I might not get a whole big batch of green beans at one time to save up to do 14 jars at one time, but it's nice that I can have just this tiny little harvest every other day, and I can throw it into the Nesco and get it done. And here's a great question for you up on the screen there, Barb, if you can answer that. If there's any way to tell if your canning has botulism, what are the signs?
First, I want to touch on what you said, and then I will answer that.
Mm-hmm.
The way to expand your pantry is not always by 7 quarts at a time. You know, do a small batch, try it, because I've gotten into a lot of things that I thought I would love, and I just did not love it. You know, it was not what everybody said it was going to be. You know, oh, this is a great recipe. Oh, no.
Herbed beets. I'll never do herbed beets again with the rosemary and the ginger.
Tomato jam.
Beets for me now.
Tomato jam. I love tomatoes. Tomato jam. Tomatoes are not they're a fruit, but they're not made for jam. Just no. And if anybody wants tomato jam, I have probably 50 pints I made up at all. So I can send you tomato jam before you make it.
Just put little bows on it. It'll be Christmas gifts next year.
I know. I got to empty my jars out and just get them back because I need the jars now. you always put that in there thinking, okay, how can I recycle this? I don't like it. Can I sneak it into some spaghetti sauce? No. How can I sneak that in somewhere? And it just doesn't work. Now to address Barb's country home question. Is there a way to tell if your canning has botulism signs? Botulism is clear. It is odorless. It is colorless. There is no way to know that you have it in either your store-bought food or your canned food. It is also tasteless. So what you need to do is what you should every it amazes me because you go to the store and Campbell's Soup says cook this soup for 10 minutes, boil it before you eat it. But we all eat it out of the can. I mean, who hasn't like scooped out a thing of cream of mushroom soup and without cooking it? You do some things,
Yeah.
Even though it says to cook it from the store, you do eat it, but you are supposed to cook your food. Anything high acid, low acid. So anything that is meats or vegetables, you are supposed to cook before you eat it, even from the store.
Well, I was going to say, since we're getting a lot of good questions in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start pulling up. If you have questions for Tammy, go ahead and use the queue so I won't skip over it because my eyesight is terrible. And ask your questions for Tammy. And I already have 3, I see. Is that what you were going to say, Alicia? Yeah, there is.
One thing I wanted to say to touch on what Tammy was just saying is look for those obvious signs. If you have, whether it be a can from the store or your jar that you take off of your shelf, if there's bulging, if you have a dented can that is bulging, if you put it on the can opener, hey now, I know, be quiet. If you put it on the can opener and as soon as you puncture it, if it hisses or sprays, you've got an issue. Don't eat that food. It goes back to what Monica was saying earlier. When you store your jars, if you do canning at home, take the rings off so you don't get that false seal. If there's something wrong, that seal's going to pop and there's something wrong. Don't eat that food. It's also important that when you take that ring off, wash your jars really well so you don't have any debris on the outside that might leach in. You just never know what's going to happen with that. But those signs are there. If you just look, it's okay to get dented cans on sale at the store, but make sure they're not bulging and just be really careful when you open them. If there's hissing or spraying, don't eat that food.
And there's the bulging is not necessarily botulism, but it is a foodborne illness you don't want, and it'll make you just as miserable, or so
nobody's got time for that kind of misery.
Yeah, and make sure you wipe your jars off when you wash them, and then you thoroughly dry them underneath the rings. If your mother-in-law is leaving them on, she needs to dry underneath the rings before she puts them back on for storage, because that's where you're going to get rust, and then you're not going to be able to open your jar to get that ring off.
Oh yeah,
lid.
Oh, they rust,
and then you can't eat it because if there's rust on it, that's another thing, another no-no. You don't want to eat those jars.
Yeah,
and she's listening right now.
They're really hard. Really hard to get off too.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't do that for one of my jellies. I forgot to take them off, and I was so excited because this was like Concord grapes that I got gifted to me. Spent the hours to juice them and all of it, and now I cannot get it. Man strength can't open that little can lid to get it off. So I was like, oh.
Hey, Kacy, run some hot water over it and take a butter knife. Don't bang it, but go with the ring. Do it like this, and it'll and if you want to, you can video chat me, but go sideways, not directly on it so you don't break it, but sideways, and it'll kind of start tapping that loose. Just lightly hit it, and it'll start tapping that ring loose.
Well, I'm going to be face chatting you now because I do want to try that Concord jelly. But this question is from Miss Brenda, one of our fabulous moderators. I was told you shouldn't can in the Instapot. Is that true? I have the same question for Tammy.
The pressure pot XL or power pressure XL. Yes, you can have that. XL is approved for 4 pints. Some of them are and some of them aren't. You just have to read your instructions. What you need to be able to do, first you need to know your altitude. At my altitude, I am at 10 pounds of pressure. A lot of the Instant Pots will do 12 pounds of pressure. So you need to know if your pressure is right. If it doesn't do 10 to 12 pounds of pressure, you can't use that in Colorado in the mountains because it's not appropriate for your altitude and your pressure you need to use. So you need to know where you're at, what your altitude, your pressure is, and then you have to read the directions on the box because some of them are and some of them aren't. And you need to know. At first they came out, they said they were, then they said they weren't. Now they say they are again. So you really just need to know if it vents, if it does the pressure that is correct for your area.
And I think there's a lot of confusion with people saying pressure cooking, pressure canning. They're not the same thing. So that's where I think there's a lot of confusion when this first came out and people are like, I'm going to can in my pressure cooker. It's like, but it's not a canner. And there was all of that back and forth, whether it was safe or not. So,
well, I don't have a little, like, Presto makes canner cookers, which also confuses the heck out of everybody.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody's like, you can't use your cooker. Well, I use my cooker and it says I can. Yes, Presto makes them. What you need to be able to do is be able to have headspace for your jar in that cooker. A lot of cookers don't have enough space. You need to build up the pressure in that pressure device, whether it's a cooker or a canner. You have to have the space. So even if you can get your little jars in there, it doesn't mean that you have a pot that is big enough to get to 10 pounds of pressure with the jars in there. When you're cooking, it's not that big of a deal because you're testing the doneness of your food. When you're canning, it is a big deal. You want to be able to get your pressure right. And so you want to make sure that you're using one that is approved for canning.
Those were good questions, y'all. Good questions in the chat. Trying to make sure I didn't miss anybody's.
We've been talking so much, I just don't even know where we are on our timeline and on our bullet points.
Well, while Casey's looking for questions, Tammy, can you just explain the purpose of the headspace in the jars to folks who aren't familiar with canning?
Oh, in the jar, you want a headspace. A lot of things are 1 inch. Very few things are less than that. But you want at least a 1 inch headspace when you're canning because you don't want the food to boil out underneath the lid and then be underneath the lid when it seals back down. That seal won't hold because it's got, you want it clean. You want the lid to set. You want the rubber to set right on the jar. Nothing between the rubber and the jar. And so that headspace is to make sure that everything stays clean. The thing I have the most problem with is apple pie filling. That stuff wants to boil right out over the sides of the jar. I give that a little more space. It's a sticky, gooey mess. And I'm using clear gel even, or I've done it with flour. I've done it with cornstarch. It's a mess. So that is to help keep the seal clean and good. Now, a lot of people freak out if there's more headspace in there. If you're raw packing meat, you might have half a jar of headspace when you're done because that learning curve when you're first canning, you don't pack your meat right in there hard, and then it all shrinks down to like this much in the jar. Don't throw that out. It's not unsafe. People freak out in some of these other groups and tell, you got to throw all your meat out because your headspace is now 2 inches and not 1 inch. No, it's just there to protect your seal. You don't get too worried about it.
Thank you.
Speaking of Rebel canning and all of these Rebel things, I wanted to share with you because I was so excited when you were going to come up and be our guest. I wanted to share with you one thing that I've learned about the Rebel canning. My most favorite recipe are the Fiesta beans. I love Fiesta beans. I have probably 10 pounds of beans right now that I need to get ready to process. I went through my Fiesta beans so quickly. For those of you who have not tried Fiesta beans, you've got to try them. I will be doing a video on those soon, even though there are plenty of them out there. But Tammy's smiling for those of you listening to the podcast. I think she loves Fiesta beans too.
I'm laughing also because beans are one of the hardest things to can. I think people think, oh, the hardest thing to can is meat or whatever. No, beans are really hard to can and get just right and taste good. So when somebody's excited about their recipe and their beans, that's makes me happy because I know that we've got it right for them. Got the right texture and the right everything.
And they're so simple.
Mm-hmm.
They're so simple, and they've turned out perfect for me every time. I absolutely love them.
I need to go check out that recipe because that actually sounds. Who doesn't like a fiesta? So let's fiesta some beans.
It's a party in your mouth.
Ew! Pew pew pew. So let's go ahead and since we've had some wonderful questions in the chat, I'm not seeing any more right now. But let's talk about Alicia, our sponsor of this episode.
Excuse me, Kacy. There is a question in the chat, and I did want to respond to it, so I apologize. But it says, "Why is it important not to tip the jar when we take them off the canner?"
I'm trying to find it. Hold on.
It's joyful noise and notes.
Oh, I think I see it. Yep.
Thank you.
For the same reason I just said, you don't want any food particles getting between your lid and your rim before that can seal down on itself, because then you have a risk of failure. Your lid's going to pop off.
I think it's a tendency to lift that jar and tilt it because you want the water to pour off the top. The water's fine. Leave it there. Take your cans straight out. Put them on your canning mat. You can always take care of the water later, but after everything is cooled for that amount of time, 12, 24 hours on your canner or on your countertop, you can take that water off later, but a straight out is a great way to go.
Yeah. And also, like, you tilt it, and then whenever you sit it back up, the movement of that water has sucked it down and created a false seal as well.
And never, ever, ever push on the button on the top of your lid to see if it's going to seal. Don't do that. That'll give you a false seal as well. I know it's tempting when you don't hear it ping. You want to touch it and see what's going on. Leave it alone. If you get one that doesn't seal, you just use that one, pop it in the fridge, use that one first.
So true. Thank you, Lisa, for seeing that, because I tell you, my eyesight is the worst. But I'm going to pull it up now so we can go ahead and talk about our sponsor of this episode.
Our wonderful sponsor. If you're enjoying topics here on Round the Hay Bale, be sure to scan the QR code on the screen to download previous episodes and so much more.
Also, learn more about our sponsor for the Hay Bale American Crafted Catalog, and it began with one simple question: is there a place to buy goods online from small farms and homesteads?
And that innocent question came from Brandy from Farm and Animals, and by the end of the day, the homesteading community was at work.
The ACC believe that working together as a community gives us a louder voice in the marketplace. We're delighted to bring you the first edition of the catalog. For more information on the American Crafted Catalog, visit the QR code on the screen.
Alrighty, and y'all know that not only just at the Hay Bale, but we all have our own YouTube channels that are busy little bees all week. So we're going to start with Alicia and go over her weekly events. Country Mama Musing.
Oh, yes, I've got so much coming up this week. On Monday nights at 9:30 Central, we always have our Country Mama Quickie. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's a rapid fire interview. The rapid fire questions are just 10 minutes, and then we expound a little bit on that. Sometimes our interviews go a little bit longer, but the quickie part's only 10 minutes. It's always a lot of fun. So we will be having one tonight at 9:30 Central, so we hope to see you there. Also, this last week, as I mentioned, my husband and I went up to Minnesota to this beautiful Ice Castles event. So I'm going to be taking some of the key moments from our day, putting that together on a video, and that will be uploading. So if you want to learn a little bit more about these ice castles, you can see what it's like and decide if you want to go for yourself. They're available, I believe, in 5 different states. So you don't have to live up here in the frozen tundra to enjoy these. They do have other states where these are available, completely man-made, and look how beautiful that is. And then on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m., I always have a coffee chat I encourage you to bring your coffee, bring something to snack on, and we just sit back and I talk about rambling things, share my stories, things that have happened in my life, and I just kind of ramble a little bit, and it's always a lot of fun. And this morning, I also dropped a new little video about Betty White's birthday, even though we know she passed away. So that's pretty much my week. We're still recovering from walking in all of that snow. My hip flexors are hurting. So, but we'll be hitting on some of those things during the coffee chat. So that's pretty much my week. Who is next? Kacy.
It's us here at the Ormsby Farms. So this weekend actually was the first weekend that we got work done on the homestead of cleaning up and clearing, because our move-in date is rapidly approaching of when we're moving. So after the podcast today, this actually goes live as our sixth part of the farm blog, where we're cleaning up the homestead. The whole family actually is there. And tomorrow, after our season 1 of Being Cayce came out, our roadside assistance full season of me and Mom went on an 11-day trip after recording the first season of our reality show. And this is our 11-day trip to Pennsylvania and back. On Wednesday, I actually started seeds. So I did a video on starting your onions and herbs from seed. And I learned about a cool new thing of bottom watering in the bathtub for your plants. And it actually worked really, really well. So that's on the video as well. And then before we go on to the last one, I am going to play just a snippet of our roadside assistance trailer, which will come out tomorrow.
Hey y'all, I'm Kacy.
And I'm Susan, his mom.
Join us on our 10-day trip northward,
where we'll experience new cultures, learn about history,
try new wines, and live the life of a boondocker at Harvest House.
We are really looking forward to sharing this fabulous trip with you.
And watch our 5-part series where traveling is important, but traveling with family is everything.
Being Cayce, Roadside Assistance, returns to YouTube January 2022.
So that will be on a live tomorrow. And then on Friday, we are officially finally cleaning out and building our raised bed gardens for our 40 by 16 high tunnel greenhouse, whatever you want to call it. That will come out Friday. So now I'm going to pass it along to Miss Lady Boots, my twin, other Kacy.
All right. So later on today, I am putting up the video for the pantry challenge I am doing with Three Rivers Homestead. And you can find all of those videos as well if you click on the blue hashtag 3 Rivers Challenge in each of the videos, and it will take you to all the videos that have that hashtag on it. But it is a weekly video that we are doing, and I tried my best last week to video every meal. If I didn't video it, I did tell you what it was. There is a menu underneath the video, and any recipes or whatever that I may use, I will put that in there as well. So that'll be later today. And then tonight at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time, we are doing our Live at 5 Monday night sit and chat. So that'll be a live of just what's going on. We talk to you guys, nothing in particular. I don't think we have a specific topic for tonight, but we just kind of, talk to you guys and have friends. And Mr. Boots, which is Steven, most of you may know, he also has a channel he is starting up to do some watch and grow and some help desk. So Wednesday night at 5 o'clock, he's going to be doing a help desk live, and it's going to be on the topic of Canva. That is a program where you can go in and use for multiple uses, YouTube or merchandise or anything like that. He's going to be going over and answering you guys' questions regarding Canva, how to use it, and taking through some different simple tests, steps on how to put everything kind of together. So then Wednesday, I believe I'm going to put that one out also. Either Wednesday or Thursday, I am doing a sewing video where I am taking in a skirt that is too big. I bought it on purpose because it was on clearance, but it's too big, and I show you guys how I actually take that skirt in. And then Thursday, I am going to be sitting down talking about why we are using herbal medicine and the difference between it and pharma and some pros and cons of them. So stick around for that if you want to learn a little bit about why, where, and how herbal medicine came about. And of course, Friday is Air Fryer Friday, and I don't have a recipe yet, but I'm going to get one this week. Then I'm going to be cooking for supper one night, and I'm going to share that recipe with you guys on Friday. So stick around and see what comes up.
All right. And over on our channel, today, actually earlier this morning, we released never before seen footage of moving what is now our turkey coop. We did this back in June of 2020. It's raw footage. The only edit was to edit out my foul mouth. I had one inappropriate word. Other than that, it's pretty raw. So we think you'll get a kick out of it knowing that you've seen us. Also tonight, I will be featured on Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And on Wednesday, we will be releasing another mail call. And then for Friday, we will be releasing our product review, which is our Grub Terra, which has been a long time coming. And then, of course, Friday night, if you missed last Friday night, we had a blast. I finally, at 2.5 hours, I had to say, guys, we got to go. So it was a lot of fun. We had a blast. We learned a lot of new things. So we're going to be hanging out with our friends Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
And so over on the ranch here, we are going live on Thursday night, as we always do. It's 8 p.m. Central. And this week we have the beautiful, amazing Ann Dale, whose voice is so soothing. I could literally just listen to her and watch her videos all day. Before Thursday, though, we do have a couple other things. Tomorrow afternoon, I will be over at Mountain Grandma's with Lisa and Tammy at Mountain Grandma. You can go check it out there. There's it's set up for StreamYard. So I'll be on there talking about the 7F goal setting plan. And we're going to talk about it, how I do it with our family for our ranch. So I've been brushing up on all that. And so I'll be over there tomorrow afternoon. And then after that, we are hosting the Tuesday night Watch and Grow. Ridge Life has started handing that out again so that other people can host the Watch and Grow from Tim's Ridge Life. And we are the hosts this week. And that's Tuesday night at, I think it's 7 p.m. my time. I always want to say what Eastern time is, but it's like 6 p.m. People come on, and 7 p.m. we start Central. So hope you guys can come on over and join us.
So be sure to scan the QR code to find out all about these wonderful events that we have going on.
And be sure to catch up on all the previous episodes on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Spotify.
All righty, now we get to find out, and let's see who is joining us next week on Round the Hay Bale.
Next time on Round the Hay Bale,
YouTuber and master prepper Gray from Gray Men Prepping joins us.
To continue in Preparedness Month, we are talking with Gray about how to keep your family stocked and prepped.
We are also talking long-term prep and his must-have stocked items.
So grab a cup of joe and join us next week on Round the Hay Bale.
Hey, y'all.
Hey. Oh, that's great. I'm looking forward to that. Alrighty, friends. Thanks again for stopping by the Hay Bale. And thanks again to Tammy from Rebel Canners for joining us. And be sure to press that thumbs up and subscribe to join us every week.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all. Bye.
Bye, y'all. Bye.